You know that thing where older generations look at Gen Z and think they're just broken? Too sensitive, too anxious, can't handle anything, glued to their phones like it's a life support system. Yeah, turns out their brains are actually wired completely differently. And I'm not talking metaphorically here, I mean literally, neurologically, fundamentally different. The science behind this is wild, and it explains pretty much everything people get wrong about them. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you will completely change how you see the generation everyone loves to criticize. Here's what nobody talks about. Gen Z isn't just soft or too sensitive. Their nervous systems are responding to a world that's objectively more intense than anything previous generations experienced at their age. And their brains developed during this chaos. That's not weakness, that's adaptation. Let's start with something that sounds insane but is backed by neuroscience. Gen Z's dopamine baseline is fundamentally different from every generation before them. You know how dopamine works, right? It's your brain's reward chemical. Every time something good happens, you get a text, you finish a task, someone likes your photo, tiny hit of dopamine. Your brain says, "Good job, do that again." But here's the kicker. Gen Z grew up with smartphones from childhood. Not as teenagers, not as young adults, literal childhood. Their brains were still developing, still forming neural pathways, still figuring out how rewards work, and they had infinite dopamine at their fingertips. Swipe, dopamine. New notification, dopamine. Funny video, dopamine. Someone responded, dopamine. Their brains learned that rewards come fast, frequent, and with minimal effort. Now, compare that to previous generations. You wanted to talk to your friend? You called their house phone and hoped they were home. You wanted entertainment? You waited until Saturday morning for cartoons. You wanted validation? You had to actually do something in the real world and wait for someone to notice. The dopamine hits were slower, less frequent, required more effort. So your baseline, your normal level of stimulation, stayed relatively low. Gen Z's baseline? Sky high. And this isn't theory. fMRI studies show that brains exposed to high-frequency digital rewards during development literally restructure their reward systems. The threshold for interesting or satisfying gets pushed higher and higher. So when someone tells Gen Z to just read a book or go for a walk or be patient, they're asking their brain to find satisfaction in something that barely registers on their dopamine radar. It's not that they don't want to, it's that their nervous system is literally screaming, "This is boring," because it's been trained to expect constant stimulation. And then everyone calls them lazy. Wild. But wait, it gets weirder. Because this dopamine rewiring doesn't just affect their attention span, it affects their anxiety levels too. Let's talk about the anxiety epidemic. Because yes, it's real. And yes, the numbers are terrifying. According to research by psychologist Jean Twenge, rates of anxiety and depression in teens have skyrocketed since 2010, right when smartphones became ubiquitous. We're talking a 50% increase in clinical anxiety disorders among Gen Z compared to millennials at the same age. 50%. And everyone's quick to blame social media, right? They're comparing themselves to everyone. They're getting cyberbullied. They're addicted to likes. True, but incomplete. Here's what's actually happening in their brains. Constant connectivity means constant social evaluation. Their nervous systems never get a break from being perceived, judged, and measured. Think about it. Previous generations, you went to school, you dealt with social dynamics, then you went home. Done. Social stress, over. Your brain could rest, recalibrate, recover. Gen Z, there's no going home. The group chat follows you. The Instagram story stays live. Someone's always posting, always performing, always watching. Your brain literally cannot distinguish between "I'm alone in my room" and "I'm being socially evaluated," because your phone makes them the same thing. This triggers something called chronic social monitoring. Your brain stays in low-level threat detection mode 24/7. Is someone mad at me? Did I say something wrong? Why didn't they respond? Am I being left out? Your nervous system never fully relaxes because the social environment never actually closes. And cortisol, your stress hormone, stays elevated. Not at panic attack levels, but at this constant simmer that your body can't sustain long term without consequences. The result? Anxiety becomes your baseline, not occasional worry, baseline. And then people ask why Gen Z is so anxious, like they chose this. Now, here's the part that's going to mess with you. Gen Z isn't just dealing with normal developmental stress. They're dealing with what psychologists call collective chronic crisis mode. Let me paint you a picture of what it's like to grow up as Gen Z. You're born into a world that's already on fire, literally. Climate change isn't a distant threat. It's on the news constantly. Wildfires, floods, we have 10 years to fix this or we're all doomed. You start school. Active shooter drills are as normal as fire drills. You're 6 years old, hiding under your desk, learning that someone might come to kill you at school. That's not theoretical fear. That's your brain absorbing the world is dangerous during critical development years. You hit your teens. Economic crash, pandemic, isolation during the exact developmental window when your brain is supposed to be learning social skills, taking risks, forming identity. Then you're told you need to pick a career, go to college, which costs more than a house used to, and compete in an economy where entry-level jobs require 5 years of experience. Oh, and also save the planet, fix systemic inequality, and have perfect mental health while doing it. Your brain is trying to develop a sense of safety and future, but every message you're getting is, nothing is stable, nothing is safe, the world is ending and it's on you to fix it. Here's something that'll surprise you. Despite all this, Gen Z scores higher on empathy measures than any previous generation. They care more about social justice, mental health awareness, inclusivity. They're the generation calling out toxic behavior, setting boundaries, refusing to accept that's just how things are. Why? Because their brains developed in an environment of constant information exposure. They see everything: global issues, diverse perspectives, injustices happening in real time. Their mirror neurons, the parts of the brain responsible for empathy, have been activated more frequently than any generation before. They literally can't unsee suffering. That's not performative. That's their nervous system responding to unprecedented access to human experience. But caring about everything, all the time, while your own mental health is barely holding together, that's cognitive overload. And when older generations tell them to just focus on yourself or stop being so sensitive, they're asking Gen Z to turn off a part of their brain that's been fundamentally shaped by connectivity. You can't unring that bell. So what does all this mean? Gen Z isn't broken. They're responding exactly as any human brain would when raised in constant digital stimulation, perpetual social evaluation, and unrelenting crisis messaging. Their anxiety isn't weakness. Their need for mental health support isn't fragility. Their boundary setting isn't entitlement. It's their brain trying to survive in a world that's wired completely differently than the one previous generations navigated. And honestly, the fact that they're still here, still fighting, still creating, still caring, that's not just resilience. That's extraordinary. They're not the problem. The world they inherited is.